no paperwork was never done.
Well, the county never realized it was never transferred, so over the years, of course, the county has changed everything
Officers.
from foremans to whatever. So when somebody needed hooked up to it, they just charged them for the hookup.
Our
Money
fee for
went into
hookup.
our account, they paid for the hookup, and then they paid REUs to us as they used the sewer line. So I did give the state an option to go either way. I didn't care. And that's when they chose, and then when I told them no, I wasn't going to accept giving them 10 years of sewer line, it wouldn't be fair to the rest of the lines, the rest of the sewer people. And they come back, well, that was just a,
Idea.
it was just a, yeah, that was, we weren't serious about that. Well, so now we are getting the line for nothing. They are going, in the maintenance agreement, you read that they're going to keep putting in the chemicals and the amount of water, even though they're gonna shut the rest area down next year and build a new one. But they are going to keep the chemicals and the water going into the sewer line at their cost. And,
So can I ask the question? So we're gonna say, because they did it in Bridgeport, and they did it south 70, or northbound 75, south of Grand Blanc, where they just decided not to have a rest stop anymore.
that's because they found bones in that one.
Well, the Indian burial along the Cass River.
Yeah.
But then there was another one just further down, they said it's not necessary, there's all these places truckers can go to, no big deal, there's more. Moral of the story though is this, so hypothetically, they decide they don't need this rest stop. Are we going to terminate this that goes over Fraser and out? Or are we gonna be on the hook to pump water and chemicals to keep this line active? Rebex have no intentions of selling their fields, and neither do, what is it, Schlotters, they have no intent of selling their fields. So what do we do with a tail on a line? I'm just asking this question. Does Nutrien or Doors have to start pumping something into the system to keep that piece of a long line alive? And I do know they're working on, we all heard at the meeting, septic tank reform, remember, on Thursday night. And they're talking about the state is going to mandate a septic tank inspection every 5 years if you have a septic tank. And if you fail, then you'll buy a $3,000 license and be able to put another one in.
And it'll probably be an up-flush system unless there's a sewer line, and then they're gonna make you hook to the sewer line.
Yeah. But, you know, this is great today. The only question, well, you heard me, actually, 3 questions after the
They didn't put a time frame on them keeping water and chemicals at that end.
And the water they buy from
Us,
Holland.
it comes, believe it or not, off Beaver Road. That's a run water line from Beaver Road up to.
Beaver or Linwood?
Beaver.
Because it
It's
runs,
actually our system.
it runs
not
down the
Beaver
road.
Linwood Road, excuse me, Linwood Road.
Okay.
Because I do remember the hydrant popping up, and I do oddly know that they put that hydrant in on Anderson Road, which is about as,
I thought the water come down Anderson and stopped at the hydrant. So I was negotiating that their water line be tapped into Fraser Township's water line, so there was no deadheads right there. That's when Bay County says, no, the water line comes off the expressway and goes to the fire hydrant. So it's not Fraser Township coming this way, it's,
Holland going that way.
well, it's Fraser Township, it's actually the rest area, put that spur of water line in there. When they put the water in.
So, my biggest question is, we're saying we're not modifying anything on these pages. I don't have a problem with this, but the problem
It
with,
says it right in
the
there.
problem with this is,
Well, All right, just so you know, Justin, one of the stipulations to not changing the memorandum of understanding or changing the maintenance agreement. Do you understand why there's a maintenance agreement? Because the fence on Anderson puts us on state property. So the actual maintenance agreement doesn't start till we cross the fence and does not, it ends when we cross the fence back into Fraser Township. Meaning they have no jurisdiction over that line in Fraser Township. We have the jurisdiction. But when we're on the state property, part of the understanding was we would have a memorandum
Of understanding, basically.
Or we would have a maintenance agreement on how we could cross the state property to fix anything out there. But when we typed this up, Spicer did put in the verbiage that the line was all in the township. It didn't even say what township. But Justin said if we take that verbiage out, he said the rest is fine. The rest is fine. And
Can I
so
see what we're supposed to remove?
that's what we removed, and that's what's, I did print these out about 20 minutes ago that Spicer sent us. And it doesn't have that verbiage at that particular spot. So it doesn't speak about where the line is other than it's on MDOT property right away.
So at that point, it genericizes, it's a line continuous that is, well, actually, since it doesn't, you can see it doesn't specify.
But this is only on the resolution, not
Not
on the
on the-
MOU,
right.
which is where we had originally voted to have it changed.
Right. That's the only thing that changed from what you had originally, is that verbiage up there. But everybody agreed that all we had to do was take it off the resolution. And Spicer did say that he didn't anticipate to put it on there, but when he typed it, he didn't take it off.
So here's the other question that I have. This maintenance agreement has a date on it of May 17th of this year. And so even back in May, it talked about the resolution that was necessary. This one, I believe, is the one that is dated July 10th of 2023. And then we didn't see anything about this until we received the packet for the August meeting. So you've worked on this for quite a while. You said that you did some negotiation, and they said, you know, we'll do 10 years of free sewer, and blah, blah, blah. And you went back and forth, and at no point did that ever come before the board for the board to have any input about how this situation was going to be handled at all. Not even a mention, not even a, hey, heads up, we got something going on with the sewer line. Nothing whatsoever until it was put on the agenda. And then, when we have reasonable questions about this, reasonable questions, our heads get bit off via email for asking questions. I think it's a reasonable question to ask how many people are on this line. When did they get hooked up? How much
And
did
you
they
know who
pay?
to
Where
ask
did it
those
go?
questions to. You ask them to
But
make
those
up-
questions should have been asked by somebody on this board. Not just saying, oh, talk to Bay County Water about this. Somebody on this board should have been asking these questions. This is a cost-benefit analysis. Everybody in business does that. How much money have we expended already? How much money are we likely to expend? What is the revenue that we're going to bring in? These are normal business questions that we would have been able to ask 8 months ago, or 11 months ago, or even 4 months ago, if anybody had clued us into the fact that this was going on, instead of just throwing it on an agenda and expecting us just to vote on it without even having the opportunity to have those discussions. And that's where the problem comes in. That's the problem. And then when we ask the questions, we get snark, to put it gently, snark back when the questions are asked. This is being pushed through all quick and in a hurry without even giving us the option to do due diligence that we're elected to do by asking the questions, because it's thrown on us at the last minute. And then we're supposed to vote.
The whole sewer line in Fraser Township, actually the whole sewer line probably even in Calhoun, don't have enough people to really support itself. It does because of the fact we charge the REUs on
To
the
large.
water, and we keep building a fund. If if something happens to the sewer line, but the whole sewer line has been there longer than the 22 years that that sewer line has been there. So, and not everybody's hooked to the sewer line. Now, if this thing goes through with the health department, yeah, I'd say everybody on M13 eventually is gonna have to hook to that sewer line.
Well, everybody on 13 really wouldn't have a choice, because most of the properties on 13 would never meet today's standard. I mean,
That's what I'm saying.
you're down 1 foot and it's clay. I wanna know how well a system works in clay, as you and I know, don't work very well.
But that's a side issue, regardless of
So,
how many
it's not a
people,
side
it
issue.
is, because the point that I'm making is that this has been going on for months, and who's been involved in it? You've been involved in it, our attorney's been involved in it, the engineering firm has been involved in it, Base County Water and Sewer's been involved in it, the state's been involved in it, but we were elected to represent the people of this township, and we were never even given a heads up. That's where the problem is. We were never able to have a say in this. The whole point of having a board of 5 people is that you have 5 different opinions, 5 different experience levels, 5 different education levels, so that everybody adds to the mix. That's what makes a stronger team to work together. But if you're left in the dark all the time, how are you supposed to have any input?
If it took 11 months or 10 months to put this all together, because these dates on here might be the date that the first draft of the maintenance agreement come through. It wasn't when we finished it in May, because I would have brought it to the board long before now.
I think right now we're on the 9th month, from 22 is when
Yeah.
the MOU was put together, according to the numbering system on the top of the page.
Well, I didn't need the maintenance agreement till we got the memorandum of understanding that said we had to have the maintenance agreement.
I would just wish that as this has been modified to not state that it's in our district, this would have been modified to say the exact same thing.
The
So that these-
memorandum of understanding comes from the Attorney General's office, so they would have had to modify it.
But, had we had this discussion back in March, we could have discussed it then. We could have brought this up
Yeah,
then,
'cause
instead
this
of having
form-
it just launched on us.
This was approved
And then
by
it was too
legal
late.
on 4/25 of 23. And then we signed it on 7/10 of 23.
Prior to either of us.
And the only way I'm gonna vote in a positive way is that date has to be changed.
We can change that date. I printed that out.
No, the date that's signed is 7/10.
I know, I can
Being modified.
print out a new one.
All of our dates need to align,
I signed it with the understanding that they were gonna just. put it
rubber
through the-
stamp, and it's done. And then they said, oh, wait a minute, we can't rubber stamp nothing, because it's government, we know that. It's complicated the higher we go.
But if you have a clean copy in your email, then when Charlie sent you a message and said, we want to see an amended, unsigned document, you could have absolutely said, well, we did talk to legal and here was their advice,
I did say that.
but, I wasn't done, but I can print out an unsigned document, but that's not what was said. That was not what was said at all when we asked about it. We were concerned about the fact that if you date the resolution today and you're not changing these documents that were signed in July, that's a problem. And you could have just said, hey, I can print out a new one, it's no big deal. We'll sign it after the resolution is approved if it passes. You could have had that discussion, but that's not at all what it was. It was, I've already made the decision, despite how the board voted, I've already made the decision that we're not gonna change it. That was the response that was received.
I just want everything to be the same.
This isn't going to be. I'm not gonna send it back to the Attorney General's office. We're not sending.
You're not gonna adjust that date there?
I can adjust those dates, but I'm not gonna take out that it's not in Carroll County Township. It's not all gonna be the same. The dates are my signature, yes, I can, those are,
I just want all the dates, all the documentation, everything has to be the same. I don't want anybody at the state looking at something saying, why did they do this, and why is this like this, and this one don't even have a date? Because I wouldn't sign a document for anybody and not put some kind of a date next to my name. just because this document doesn't even have a date on it. This one, it's easy. All you gotta do is put a date right at the end of your name. And that makes so that it's a package. And
We go in as a package.
if we look back to this, it's a package. It's all the same date, one of three, two of three, three of three, with attachment A. Because attachment A, I guess, is important, because it's
They just-
the lift station. So making sure, so it would actually be considered a four-part document. But it should say that somewhere on this paperwork. This is a four-part document, so that when they get it and it goes through the Attorney General's office, she's not saying, wait a minute. Because even an attachment page should technically be signed.
No, it speaks of the attachment page, but
Or it should say at the bottom of this page, just add, you could write the verbiage on, see attachment A,
so
or,
the Attorney General has to sign it after me.
yeah, that's okay. But at least we would have a dated document that left here to see how long it takes the Attorney General to do their due diligence.
So when I put this together, I'm going to send it to the Department of Transportation, who then is gonna send it all to the Attorney General's office. So it's probably gonna be at least 3 months before we ever see it again, completely executed.
Okay, but it takes effect the date that the resolution is passed and the date that it is signed.
No effect unless this is signed and dated and sent in.
Right,
That's right.
So,
And it's
and while I
not
get that,
effective, the understanding
until the
is
other signature
until the
happens.
other signatures get put on it.
And whenever that gets back to us, so we don't actually know when we take over jurisdiction on this line. The other thing that I had
We
brought,
took over jurisdiction on it 22 years ago.
but you said nobody did any maintenance on it, when we
Well-
talked about it in August, you said nobody had done any maintenance on this line because nobody knew who owned
What's
it.
it, nine
No,
possession?
anything that the line needed, we paid for.
Okay,
Any hookups, we did. Any REUs was collected by us and put in our account. That's why I offered at the beginning to just give them an accounting and they could pay us the difference
Be done,
and be done.
but they don't wanna be done.
They don't want the sewer line.
They just,
To be honest with you, I'll be honest with you, in talking to the MDOT, they didn't realize they owned it, so I asked if we could hook Dory up to it. So,
it's one of those don't ask, don't tell questions. Nobody really knew, and nobody was really, because even at MDOT, there's new people out here.
you know, yeah.
Because the guy that used to run this territory isn't there, and it's some woman that's taking care of part of our territory now.
yes. So as a follow-up, and I had asked this question in August, and I asked this question via email today. We do not have any type of job description or budget line item or anything for any maintenance that has to take place. We're signing a maintenance agreement, and we're saying, and I remember bringing this up in August because it became kind of a little ha-ha funny joke, that we're supposed to take care of any vandalism that happens. We have to remove that at our cost, and I said, who's gonna inspect it to see if there's anything on it? Who's gonna check to see if we need to do anything? And if there is something on it, who's gonna fix that? We don't have anybody for that purpose.
We have to look at that pumping station, not us, Bay County, because they do all our sewer. They will look at that probably once a week.
So the job description technically rests with Bay County Department of Water and Sewer Standards. Is that my understanding?
And it will be out of our sewer account, which at this particular moment, there's close to $1 million laying in the bottom of it.
So you're saying that nobody that we employ, even though it says it's our responsibility here, that it should be removed by the agency at no cost to the department, is what it says. So this makes it sound like we, the agency, as the township, have ultimate responsibility for the removal of any graffiti or vandalism. So even if Department of Water and Sewer says, hey, somebody painted something really obscene on that lift station, right? Then who goes and fixes it? Who fixes it from there?
They would, just as if the pump for system right out here, there's 2 pumps in it.
The hole, which is along, right out at the
Right.
rest stop.
The rest stop is gravity feed into the pumping station.
Okay.
And then it's a force main all the way to Linwood to M13.
Okay, I understand the whole good condition, but it says both as to safety or appearance. That's the question I'm asking. I'm not asking about the pumps. I'm saying if there is something that is appearance-wise, we're responsible for. So where does it say that Bay County Water and Sewer is going to take somebody out there and have them clean up the vandalism or clean up the graffiti? Where does it say that? Because it seems like we're operating on assumption here, and if we read it in black and white.
With Bay County Water and Sewer.
We already have an agreement with them.
Okay.
We already have an agreement with Bay County.
And they do our maintenance on our pump stations and maintenance
So
to
they
make
remove
sure.
graffiti and vandalism on our pump stations
Well,
all
actually,
through
they
the
got rid of
township.
that champagne glass on the pump station that's on Linwood Road.
So this is
There was
just.
one on there and that was painted over. It's no longer there.
So this is just gonna be added to that maintenance agreement that we already have with Department of Water and Sewer, and whatever they bill us, whatever they decide to bill us, is just gonna go against
The
our
minute this
account.
becomes ours, it's a part of our agreement with Bay County Water and Sewer. And because Bay County Water and Sewer has a master agreement with the state for the highway, for
Yeah, they
everything,
maintain roads
Right.
and everything else.
we don't have to have our own, because we're a blanket under them when it comes to, we don't every year have to have a maintenance agreement with
Water
the
and
I
sewer.
highway
understand
department.
that. Based on the wording of this, that was a question that I have, and I appreciate you explaining it. Because
But
I've
it
had
would
the
fall
question since
underneath our
August.
agreement with Bay County Water and Sewer.
And
because
all
it
I'm saying is I
becomes
asked in
ours.
August, so
And
that could have been
I
explained in
haven't been
August.
up there, but I would bet that they're gonna put a fence around
Pump station.
the pump station up there. If there's not a fence there. There might be
I
just
haven't
a
went and
wood
looked
fence.
because to get on the freeway, when I'm due, it's to be to point A to B and back to A.
Yeah.
So, but I'm also trying to, I know I've been along all the parts that are from state fence down the road to Linwood Road and heard what those people said, and I would think.
It was originally in the agreement, so when you talked to Henry and the line was being put in, the state said nobody was to hook up to that line.
Oh, yeah, they were pretty intimate with them because, the question was asked by a family member, and the family member was told, just because it goes through your farm, doesn't mean you can tap into it. And he was rather dumbfounded that they would say something like that, because if you're trying to get me to sign easement agreement, that's the last thing you should ever say to somebody. So he said, at that point, I was shut down, and I told you, like, I was up there, and the farmer right on Anderson Road, he's tiling those lots. If he knew he would have a sewer line available for people to tap, he might have sold those lots. I know if I was that farmer, I would have considered it. But once you've tiled it, you spent the money. Time to farm it.
I'm just saying that the original agreement said that, and since nobody apparently read the original agreement, Bay County just started hooking people up as they needed it. I mean, I don't think the first house got hooked up to it for 15 years after it was put in, but.
But once one person figured it out, then a few more did.
Well, the bottom line is when you hook to a force main system, you gotta put in a grinder. You gotta put in a pump. So your toilets in your house dump into this pit, and that pump grinds it up and pushes it out into that force main. So it's as big of an expense as a septic field and tank, and the pump can go to hell. So you gotta, there's more maintenance than just a 20-year or 30-year septic tank in the field. So it's an expense. Nobody wants to hook up to it, but I can bet you that the health department, the mound system that they're talking about